Hey, how's it going, everybody? Um, this is Tom Dog here. We're doing a little something different for this week's episode of Channel X. Um, Not going to do any plugs or anything like that. This has pretty much brought to my attention um, this past week, and I wanted to pay respects to somebody who um, who I had a past with. So I'm going to be mentioning a lot about my time on cable access, and this is going to be a relatively short episode um, than we normally do. So um, it's one of those episodes where I am I go and you know have a serious side of me. Um, I try to I do my best to entertain as best as I can, but when there's somebody who passes away, I tend that I know very well. Um, even even if you know even if there's somebody whom I haven't you know seen eye to eye with and everything, but you know there's some history and everything like that. I do take take the opportunity to pay my respects in a proper manner. And this is one of those times. And my apologies for coming on late. Um, it was I had a long day, and I pretty much fell asleep. So I'm not doing any plugs. Like I said, I'm not doing any plugs, shout outs, or anything like that, like I normally do. Um, this is going to be um, one of those serious episodes that I do, and a lot of mentioning of my time on cable access. Uh, More importantly, this show um, is basically the brunt of the conversation, and yeah, um, I just I was um I was reading I sometimes read um I was born and raised in Waterbury, Connecticut, and which was where I was doing my shows and everything up until 2020, and everybody knows why. Which I'm not going to bore anybody with details on that, but a lot of times on this channel, I've talked about my time on cable access, where the show originated from, and I pretty much and I brought this show and Wrestling Prime up on here to give it another fresh for a new audience, and see it from there. And it tends to work and everything. It does, it has its moments and everything like that, but that's not what I'm here for. I'm not here for that. What I am here for is that um I've had somebody in my past there was somebody in my past who um whom I've never had on the show. back all the way back when and everything like that. Um, Primarily because of the fact that he was he was very critical of what I was doing on this show back then. It was one of those really controversial shows that I've done, and but he's a professional. He was a professional radio broadcaster in my hometown uh, for many years, and when he talked, when and he did not let up when it came, when it came to seeing what was going on with my show and as well as others. And the broadcaster, and I have no animosity towards him or anything like that. Um, so we've always had difference of opinion. Um, I never met him, but he's always hated me because of what I've always done on my show on cable access. And the guy, so being the bigger man that I am, I want to pay my respects in the in the most proper way better. And so tonight's episode, I am dedicating the show to Ed Flynn. Um, he he was a I'm going to be reading the obituary that was given to him in the Waterbury Republican American. This article came out um, earlier this week, and yeah, um, he's also he was also an army veteran, um, and this is what it wrote. Um, and this is coming from, like I said, this article is coming from the Waterbury Republican American. Edward Flynn, legendary Connecticut broadcaster, passed away peacefully at his home in Od- Odenton, Maryland. I believe it's Maryland. On April 21st, on on uh, on April 21st. Um, Ed was born on January 11th in on 1934 and grew up in the Woodside neighborhood of Queens, New York. In March 1955, while based at at Pepperell Air Force Base in St. John's, Newfoundland, he became a staff announcer and then morning man at VOUS, part of the Armed Forces Radio Service. This launched Ed's prolific radio broadcasting career. After separating from the Air Force and working at radio and TV stations up and down the East Coast, he landed at WAVZ in New Haven, Connecticut in 1963. The Connecticut chapter of Ed's career included roles as DJ Morning Man and production and operations manager at stations in Hartford, Bridgeport, Hamden, and more until 1991 when he joined WHER 1320 AM in Waterbury. Now, these are all places in Connecticut, not to be confused with any of the other towns and everything like that. There, he hosted the Talk of the Town midday talk show, a mainstay of the Waterbury region culture until his retirement in 2016. Ed married his devoted wife Frances in 1975 in Connecticut and welcomed their daughter Regan in 1986. In 2018, Ed and Fran moved to Edmonton, Maryland to become closer to Regan and her family. Ed is survived by his wife Frances, his daughter Regan, and her husband Rob. His grandson, his grandsons, um, Damiano, Flynn, and Vicario, and Killian. These are hard names to pronounce. I strongly apologize for that, as well as his sister Maureen Ahri and his brother-in-law Thomas DeAndrea, his nephew Louis, and his niece Julianne. Private funeral and burial will be on May 10th at the Chapter of Sacred Heart. And so so yeah, so his time on Talk of the Town, he was really good at. Um, when I was doing this show on cable, on cable access and in the local town there and everything, um, I pretty much had a reputation of being controversial. I've done there was some stuff in the past there, around that time that was extremely questionable, and he and he just didn't like what I did. And, he's entitled to his opinion and everything like that because hey, the stuff I did there is not for everybody. You know, but at the time I was young and naive, and I became very vocal um, when it came to somebody being critical of my show, and it would take it to heart that I would always say at the time that if you don't like what I see, why the hell are you watching? You know, and so when I found out that he didn't, he pretty much compared me to Howard Stern, um, which I don't at the time I didn't know how to take it because there's only one Howard Stern, and I can never replicate and duplicate what he does um on his radio on his morning show. I can't. I can't do that. So so me being referred to as the Howard Stern of cable access, um, I didn't take it too lightly, and maybe I shouldn't have and everything, but I just told him. I said, well, you have a remote control. You know, I'm sure you know how it works. You know, and so that's pretty much. I mean, my comebacks towards him were you know harmless. I never said anything um personal that would allow us to have any clashes or anything like that. Um, there was one time where I wanted him to come on and say, hey, you know, you're kind of critical of what I do. I mean, maybe come on my show and point out some of the stuff some of the stuff that that you don't like, and I can probably do my best to probably change your mind. But you know, for some odd reason he didn't want to. So, and But I just had that, I had the reputation over there of being, pretty much being controversial at times. Like I said, I've done some stuff on there that, I look back and saying, why the hell did I do that? you know, and I don't dwell on it at all. I pretty much forgotten about that, but I know that it's there because I have the tapes to prove it. Unfortunately, those didn't burn up in the fire. So, but yeah. But anyways, um, so I pretty much, I would pretty much like gently, gently roast him at times and everything like that. I wouldn't, I never had any animosity towards him and everything like that. He just didn't like me, and I just couldn't understand why. I really couldn't. And but whatever, you know, it is what it is. So, um, so I would, so yeah, so we had our, our difference of opinion up until his retirement, up until I left in left in 2011 to pursue um other interests outside of hair, which is how I came about doing this stuff on YouTube. So, but there were times where, because everybody in Waterbury, my old hometown, everybody knew. Pretty much everybody knew me. And when I was doing shows on when I was doing shows on cable access, even though in front of the camera I would have this reputation of being being the most controversial uh show, having the most controversial show on, you know on the channel's roster. Behind the scenes tells a different story, because I have actually had a good reputation of being complimented as being the most respectful person backstage. And that's the type of person, I wish Ed would have met, because, backstage, if there was like any other, if there was like any executive producer, or other colleagues or anything like that, you know, a lot of them knew that I'm not like that in real life. I'm not. I'm actually one of the most humble people you will ever meet in public, you know. And you know, I bump into a lot of I've always bumped into a lot of people, and they shake my hand and say, "Hey, love what you do, man. I kind of miss you do." Even when even if I was gone from haven't done the show in years, people still remember. I was like, "Man, I miss your show. I wish you would come back." I was like, I do visit the studio every now and then just to check up on my former producer colleagues, on how they're doing and everything like that. I stop by over there every now and then, and that's the type of thing that that I wish Ed would have met, you know, because then he probably would have, he would probably tell like a different story and be like and say, you know, you're not like that on your TV show. You're no, I wish you had brought this energy to the show, and I think a lot of people would like that more. And and I know, and I would respectfully say, I get what you're saying and everything like that, but I kind of like what I do, like, what I do on here because there's not a lot of shows on Sky 13. That's the studio that I was doing from. There's a lot of shows on Sky 13 that, you know, weren't like mine. Most of the shows at the at the studio that I was doing my shows on, they were mostly all um cluttered with religion and politics. Those were the two main topics. Those were the two main categories, and there was little to no room for sports and entertainment. There really wasn't. I pretty much broke that mold. And when they were in, at the in even at the time, even at the time where I was doing these shows, where I was doing Channel X and Wrestling Prime, regardless of which one I was doing, there would be some young, there would be some young group that would watch my show, and I would take in. They loved what they would love what I do, and I would take them in, coach them a little bit to inspire them to do their own show. And and I always give them always give them a word of advice. And that was a one unique trait that a lot of people behind the scenes really admire the most because, and I'm not trying to I'm not making this episode about me by any means. You know, I'm just telling what type of person that I wish Ed Flynn would have remembered. Otherwise, this show would be a hell of a lot more better. And I was always coach these these young guys, and these saying, give them that mental boost and say, hey, listen, you could pretty much, whatever your hobby is, whatever your hobby is, whatever your talents are, share it with the world, share it with everybody, because you never know, there may be somebody watching. And I told that to pretty much everybody, and I hope, that they're out there doing better stuff, and I hope they take that, whatever I said to really help them boost their career. Because at the time, you know I still feel that my time has passed and everything, and I wanted to go to broadcasting school, but that was a whole different story altogether. That was a whole different story altogether, and I'm going to save that for another time. But there was a discussion that did brought up that I do remember hearing. And my father actually told me about this. He said, you know, because he met Ed Flynn more than I did. He more than I did, strangely enough. you know, but he told me, I said, you know, he was, because he knows a lot of people at the radio station anyway. So he was like, my son would like, my son have always wanted to get into broadcasting. As soon as he said that, Ed Flynn kind of heard about it, and according to my father, he said there would be no chance in hell that your son would ever step foot into this, would ever get a job here because I would never ever give him a recommendation, nor will I ever give him a job. I will tear up I would tear up his resume. you know, and I was like, wow, but he wanted to go. And it's like, if he wants to go to broadcasting school, by all means. But there would be, if he ever graduated from broadcasting school, know that he will never have a job here. you know, so and I was like, well, that's kind of like a jerk thing to say. I never mentioned this up until now. And but I just kind of wish that he would have met the type of person that I really am, other than the character I portray on front of the camera. And you know, and I kind of wish that I would have met him and said if I and just kind of bury the hatchet between whatever he felt about me and everything like that. I I would have, you know, I would have gone up to him, shake Ed's hand, and said, if there was anything I did on my show that offended you in any way that would make you hate me in some way and dislike what I've done on the show in any simple way, in any way, shape, or form, I just want you to know that that's not who I am in real life. And if that if anything I did on my show offended you, I respect I respectfully and humbly apologize. And I kind of wish that he was still alive for me to say that, and not have moved away. There was an opportunity where I did meet him. There was this open house Christmas party. It was open to the public and everything, and WATR was hosting it. So my father and I went down there to the venue that they picked for it was at the Palace Theater in downtown Waterbury. And so we went down there and dressing real nice and festive as best as I can. I had a nice turtleneck and everything like that. It was nice. Um, you know, get the hobnob with a lot of people. Met Tom. Got to see Tom Shoot, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for, and he likes what I do too. So there's never been any animosity towards that, and it was always good to socialize with him when he's not on camera. When he's not on the mic. When he's not on the air, it's always nice to chat with him. But then there's Ed Flynn showed up. This was like one of the last appearances that he had, when he, after he retired, before he moved. And this is when his daughter was fiancés with her husband at the time. And I met his daughter and her fiance, and they were very nice people. And but still, I never really met Ed and everything like that. But somewhere deep in, I could tell that there was like he had the dagger eyes, like he wanted to he is socializing with my daughter, and it's like he better not do anything to ruin that. And and I could tell that he was doing that because you know he just didn't he just flat out did not like me. you know but I was a perfect gentleman. It's like it's a social event, and I'm not gonna do stuff that's going to you know that's not the type of person I am. And it's like I'm a respectful person outside the company and everything like that. And I always have a respect for a lot of people and everything like that, and get to socialize and everything, because what are the chances? What are the chances? And I just, like I said, I just kind of wish that he met the type of person that I really am, instead of instead of this character I portray in front of the camera, because sadly that's that's the person that he met. And but you know I'm sure he's looking down at me and saying, that I'm being the respectful person that I am and everything like that, doing this little tribute to him. And, I have to pay my respects because I'm not the type of person that would, you know, with someone who, if someone who hates me dies, I'm not going to be that guy. Okay. I'm not going to be that guy. But what I am going to do is I'm going to pay my respects and everything like that. And it's the only way I can do it. And, and because with that right there, this is the type of person I want him to see. And then, you know, when it's time for me you know, to pass on and everything like that, I'm sure, you know, we'll we'll get to reunite and, meet each other in heaven and everything, and pretty much, you know, get to share stories and everything like that, and, have a good, and just look back at the stuff and just, laugh, you know, and that's the type of person that I want him to meet, and, and know that, I never hated, never did, and doing this little tribute for him tonight shows that, you know, he's going to be missed. I mean, you know, he pretty much was, as the title of his show. He was the talk of the town, and that's who will be remembered as one of the all-time greats in the radio business, and he will be missed. And of course, him being in the military and everything. I thank you for your service. And before I close out, I want to take a moment right now to have a moment of silence for the late great Ed Flynn, and even better is induct him into the Channel X Hall of Fame. So let us take this opportunity now to have a moment of silence for Ed. Thank you, Ed Flynn, for the memories. Thank you for being the talk of the town. You will be missed, but never, ever